Continuing the Maamar of Bathi, the first Maamar Bathi Legani of Tafshin Chaf Aleph 5721. We're holding in the middle of the second dice. Where in the beginning, the first dice, the Rebbe gave a recap of the first 10 chapters of the Maamar, which is the first two Mamarim. And then the Rebbe continues in his base to explain the beginning of the third Maamar, which begins with the 11th chapter. In the previous shir, we gave a little bit of an explanation of the difference between 10 and 11, whereas 10 is the completion of a spiritual thing. In spirituality, everything is 10. The previous Rebbe's lifetime brought the world to its completeness in the spiritual sense, whereas 11, which is the beginning of the Rebbe's leadership, or of the Rebbe's officially accepting it, when the Rebbe said the Maamar on the 11th day of the 11th month, the year 5711, and that was the beginning of a level which is beyond spirituality, which is the essence of godliness that gives the ability to transform the world. This is also the idea of Purim, and this is also the idea of the beginning of the Maamar of Purim, which is Ois 11, which talks about Netzach. Now we continue from the middle of the first paragraph in the second Ois in the Maamar, Balzeu, Mevaim Beperik Yud Aleph, Inin Ha'ikri, Davedas Nishmis Yisrael, Vutzava Miloshen Chayil. The 11th chapter of the Maamar of Bathi Legani, the Frierdiker Rebbe, unlike the 10th chapter, that explains three meanings of tzava. That the word tzava, which shows on the completion of the avodah of a person in this world, has three meanings, which is tzava from the word time, tzava from the word beauty, and everything established and set in the right place, and tzava from the word soldiers, which means Kabbalah Sale, doing things because they were told to be done. The first two explanations, says the Rebbe, which were explained in the 10th chapter, are more a preparation for the Avodah. The actual Avodah of transforming the world is what's explained in the 11th chapter, which that is Tzava Miloshen Chayil. Tzava meaning a soldier, an army. Umevayir, and the previous Rebbe explains, Shinyin Tzava B'Yisrael, Shayach, Linyin Shem Tzvois Shalamayla. The fact that a Jew is Tzivis Hashem, the army of Hashem, the tzava that there is in the avodah of a Jew is connected to name tzvais above by Hashem. Every power that there is in the neshama of a Jew is connected to the concepts that are above in the spiritual worlds. And like it says in Tanya, regarding the 10 faculties that the neshama has, the 3 intellect and the 7 emotions, that they are nishtalshel, they come from, they are derived from the 10 koiches, the 10, so to speak, faculties, the 10 powers above of Hashem in the spiritual world, and that's why there are 10 faculties in the neshama of a person down here, because they come from the 10 powers of Hashem in the spiritual worlds. And therefore also this is with regards to anything that a Jew has, which is a power in serving Hashem, that it comes from the fact that this is the way it is above. And certainly the most important, the primary aspect of a Jew, which is Shehu Inyan Tzava Miloshen Chayil, which that's Tzava from the word Chayil, like we explained, that Tzava is the completion of the Avodah of a Jew, of the Neshama of a Jew. And therefore, that's the main aspect that a Jew has, that is a kosher v'shayich b'inyan tzava shalamayla uva'atzmos, that's connected to the tzava, the idea of tzava, the way it is above, in the essence of Hashem. V'zehu in Shem Havayit Tzvos, Shumei Hazayin Shemis Shenim Nimchakim. This is the name, the idea of Havayit Tzvos, which is one of the 7 names of Hashem that are not allowed to be erased, which means it's considered a name of Hashem himself. Which is interesting just to mention that despite the fact that Tzvais is one of the 7 names that are not erased, and usually one of the unerasable names of Hashem, we don't say them, we don't utter them, and yet this name, the Rebbe explains that because it has its primary meaning, it's a word in Lashon Kodesh, which isn't connected to a name of Hashem. It means an army. So although it's used as a name of Hashem, and it is a name of Hashem, nevertheless, we're allowed to utter the word itself. We're allowed to say it, unlike the other names, which their primary thing, although they have other meanings as well, such as Elikim means power, etc., etc., but their main concept is the fact that they're name of Hashem, and therefore we're not allowed to say them. But the fact is that this is a name of Hashem, which is called Havayit Tzvais. Now what is this name Havayit Tzvais? Umavayit by Maamar. The previous Rebbe, in the Maamer in Ois Yud Aleph, explains Hashem Tzvais Gilu Eisei Hanavim Ve'ein Nizkar B'Torah. An interesting thing regarding the name Tzvais is that the Nevi'im revealed it. It's not mentioned in the Torah. More specifically, the name Tzvais was first said by Chana, the mother of Shmuel, who she's considered one of the prophetesses. That she was a Neviah, and when she davened to Hashem, she used the name Tzvais, but it was a Nevuah. It was a prophecy the way she used it, and Hashem said to her, as the Gemara says, "You spoke to me with the name Tzvais. I promise you that your son Shmuel, he was the first one of the main chain of Nevi'im, of prophets that arose amongst the Jewish people, that he will begin his prophecies with the name Tzvais." And sure enough, the prophecies of Shmuel are mostly with the name Tzvais, and so are the prophecies of all the prophets after Shmuel as well. So we're saying that the name Tzvais is something which was revealed by the Nevi'im. It's not mentioned in the Torah. So this name Tzvais, the level of tzava, which is such an important thing, this is what a Jew, especially the tzava from the word chayil, a soldier, the idea of tzava is something which is the primary aspect in the neshama of a Jew. This is the concept with which we complete our avodah, our serving Hashem, and that name and that avodah is connected to the name of Hashem Tzvais. It's derived from the name of Hashem, the name Tzvais. What is this name Tzvais? We continue to say, V'inei av shebchinas tzivos havaya shaykh l'Hashem Tzvais. Why are we saying that the name Tzvais isn't mentioned in the Torah? The Torah does say twice. When the Jewish people left Egypt, it says Yatzu kol tzivos havaya mi'aretz Mitzrayim, which is, that's what we explained. That's the idea of tzava. When they completed their avodah in Egypt and they were ready to leave the Golus, at that time they're called tzivos havaya, the army of Hashem. So the name Tzvais is mentioned in the Torah. Says the Rebbe, nevertheless, we say that the name Tzvais was only revealed by the Nevi'im. Hashem Tzvais is gala idea of Nevi'im kanal. Mikol makim ein kavanasi b'zeh shemikaydem lo yahayu Yisrael tzivos havaya. When we say the name Tzvais was revealed only by the Nevi'im, it doesn't mean that before the Nevi'im came along, the Jewish people were not considered to be tzivos Hashem. It's definitely that even in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, the Jewish people were considered to be tzivos havaya, as it says in the Torah. Ubifrat v'shas matan Torah shaza yo'elam k'mei b'tchilas habriya shenivra u'midloi. This is when it says it in the Torah, with by Yitzias Mitzrayim in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, that the Jews were called tzivos havaya, the army of Hashem. And definitely later on, when it came the time that the Torah was given, that at that time the world was in its completion, the same way it was in the beginning of creation. So it's much higher than at the time of Matan Torah, because it's like it was in the beginning of creation, which is higher than it was later once there was the descent of the sin of the Egel, which that's later on, and specifically even later in the time of the Nevi'im. Shazi Aveda L'Sakin Esacheta. Once the sin of the Egel happened, the sin of the golden calf, then the Aveda, the divine service, was to fix this sin. So therefore we're saying that at the time of the Nevi'im, the name Tzvayis was revealed. How much more so earlier when the Torah called the Jewish people Tzvay Savai, and certainly by the time of Matan Torah, when the world was in its complete state. But nevertheless we say, before the Nevi'im, before Chana and Shmuel and the other Nevi'im came along, then the Jewish people were called Tzivei Savaya, meaning that the name Tzvais was not a name on its own. It was a name which was Batal, which was completely secondary and completely just a part of the primary name, which is the name Hashem, the name Havaya. As we'll explain shortly, and later on in the time of the prophets, in the time of Chana and Shmuel, etc., the name Tzvais became a name on its own, not only a name which is connected and part of the aspect of the name Havaya, but it became a name on its own. And then it became an actual name of Hashem, as we'll explain later, the idea later on in the Maamar. And then the previous Rebbe in the Maamar in Ois Yud Aleph continues, what is the aspect in general of these 7 names of Hashem? What are these 7 names of Hashem? Since we're saying, in order to explain, which we're going to explain later, the difference between each name of Hashem and the fact that the name Tzvais in the time of the Nevi'im became a name on its own, not just a name which is connected to a different name. So what are the names? What is the idea in general of the names of Hashem? And we're going to explain now this concept, the way it's explained in Kabbalah. First, we bring a medrash. The previous Rebbe brings a medrash. Shmi atam avakesh leida lefi ma'aseh ani nikra chodu uchshani nilcham im reshayim ani nikra tzvais. Hashem says, you wish to know my name. My name is according to my actions. And when I fight with the evil, and when I fight against the evil people, then my name is called tzvais. Meaning that Hashem says, my names are an expression of what I'm doing. Each name of Hashem expresses the specific action and the specific energy of godliness that's drawn down into the world at that particular time. At a time when the aspect, the energy that's needed is to fight and to war against the Rishayim, against the evil in the world, then that name which is at that time expressed is the name Tzvais, the name which alludes to fighting, alludes to the idea of a soldier of an army. Now the Rebbe explains, because now in order to explain, to understand even more the idea of what the names of Hashem is. So he said, Hashem says, I'm called according to my actions, meaning according to the specific energy that's drawn down in the world at that particular time. We see over here 2 opposite concepts. On one hand, the mimash ekasuv lefi ma'aseh chulu had a move on shein ze b'chinas oetzem ki mshu mischalef lefi ha'ma'aseh. The fact that we say that Hashem says, I'm called based on my actions, that means this isn't me. It depends what I'm doing at that particular time. It's not me. This name, the name of Hashem, is not an expression of Hashem himself. Rather, it's an expression of the godly energy that's brought down into the world at that particular time, and it changes according to the times and according to the specific things that are happening at that time. In general, that's the idea of the fact that the names of Hashem are connected to the specific spheres. A sphera is a channel of godliness that comes down into the world. Each sphera is another channel of godliness, and it's not, the name is not connecting to Hashem himself, but rather to the spheres, to the godly light that comes into the world, to the various levels, to the various aspects of godly light that come into the world. Like the famous concept that we learn in Derech Mitzvah that Tzemach Tzedek brings a lengthy discussion between a Mekubal, a Kabbalist, and a Choker, someone who understood Hashem, a philosopher or whatever, someone who understood Hashem more in the intellectual way. And the Choker was a great Gadol B'Yisrael, a great Jewish leader, and he argued with the Kabbalists. He says, I don't understand you Kabbalists. When you're davening Shemona Esrei, the name of Hashem that you're saying, the part of the concepts in Kabbalah is that each name of Hashem in each bracha of Shemona Esrei, you have a different kavanah, you have a different intent you're thinking about. It's also the different nekudas, the different vowels of the name Havaya that's being said, and you think it according to a specific sfira, according to a specific channel of the godly light. He says, speak to Hashem. Why are you thinking about different spheres? Hashem, let it just be. Hashem, why do you need to have the spheres? And he explained to him an analogy, and there's a lengthy discussion there, but he explained to him the analogy. You're asking a king for a specific thing. If you ask the king for a treasure, you want money from the king, so you have to, when you're speaking to the king, you're speaking to him, ask the minister of the treasury, of the king's treasuries. And if it's what you want is health, you're asking for the health minister. Now, even though you're speaking directly to the king, and the king is the one who's doing all of this, but the king does them all in different ways. And so also Hashem gives the various different things in different channels. But the point of it is that that's what a sphira is. So, but in the end of the day, that means that the sphira doesn't mean Hashem himself. The sphira is the channel of godly energy, the way it comes down into the world. And the Rebbe continues, quoting from the previous Rebbe in the Maamar of Tafshin Yud. V'shem tzvais, shayich l'netzach v'hoid, u'chemei shamar b'sefer shari yoina. The name Tzvais is connected to the spheres, the godly channels of Netzach and Hoid, which Netzach is victory, Hoid is the other side of the concept of victory. It's submission, but submission is also the power of winning, but in a different sense. But the concept is both of them mean victory, and like it says in the Sefer Shari Yoida, Shari Yoida is a very interesting sefer written by Rabbi Yosef Jacatilia. He was a Mekubal in Spain around 700 years ago, a student of Rabbi Avram Abulafia. And he wrote a sefer Shari Oira, which the Arizal referred to the sefer as the Mafteach for Chachmas Asay, the key to the wisdom of the esoteric wisdom, the Kabbalistic wisdom. And the Sefer is an explanation to one of his students, and specifically regarding the names of Hashem, which he explains. And in that Sefer, he says that the name Tzvais is connected to the spheres of Netzach and Hoid. And so which means that's a specific sphera, a specific channel of godliness that it connects to. So that's not the essence of Hashem himself. But when we say not just lefi maisai, according to my actions, meaning according to the energy that comes from me, according to what I'm doing at the specific time, but rather it says, I am called, Hashem says, I am called, meaning I remove on shat, davar hanikra b'shem zeh, the tzvais v'chayetze b'zeh, hu eisei hadavar shnikra gam b'shari Hashemis, av shapulis mischalfis. When we say, I am called this, meaning that Hashem is saying that it's I myself that's called, where there's no difference between one name and the other name. They're all names for the same Ani, for the same Hashem, for the essence of Hashem. The actions change according to the specific need of the time, but yet it's not that the names are referring to the actions, to the spheres, to the channels of godliness, but rather the names are referring to Hashem himself. Only the actions change. And that's why we say, that's why it says, Shezeu Mashani, B'chinas Ani Nikra, that is Hashem himself is called with that name. Chemei Shemevai Rabal Shem Tov, being in Zayin Hashemes, and now the Rebbe will continue to bring the different opinions with regards to the 7 Shemes Sheinam Mechakim, what they refer to. A very interesting, different aspects of the way that Baal Shem Tov explains it, the way it's explained in Sefer Abayir, and the way it's explained by the Alter Rebbe, which Be'ezras Hashem we will continue in the upcoming lesson.